Welcome to Jalen and Jacoby. In for Jalen Rose today, the legendary. We are honored to be graced with the presence of a champion. We have never had a champion in this studio because usually it's Jalen Rose. Today, it is Carrie Champion in for Jalen. Thank you so much for doing the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. You know how excited I am?
Anytime.
I couldn't even get sleep last
family.
night.
You can come back anytime.
But can I?
You couldn't get sleep that night last night because you were up just contemplating the Game 5 win. The Celtics over LeBron James and the Cavs. The Celtics are now one win away from sending LeBron James home earlier in the playoffs than he has been for the last 7 years. Carrie, now that the prospect of a LeBron James-less finals is upon us, would the Cavs not being in the finals be a little bit of a disappointment?
Yeah, absolutely. Not even a little bit, a huge disappointment.
Good,
Here's
I'm glad
the deal.
you're on the same
a
page with me on this one.
huge disappointment. And I'll tell you this. I said all season long, when LeBron was like, it doesn't matter if we, first seed, number 2 seed, it matters.
It does.
It matters a lot. And I know that he is thinking to himself, it would be nice if I had home court advantage.
Yes.
And not only that, and everyone's talking about home court advantage because that does matter. But if they were the number 1 seed, let's just think about it. They'd be a better team. They'd be more consistent. They could play defense. They could play better on the road. I never want to go against LeBron, but I have a hard time believing they're going to be able to go into Boston and win a Game 7. I just have a hard time believing that only because he's the only one that shows up. And I'm not putting anything past him. He may be super duper LeBron hero that day.
Yep.
But if he doesn't get any help, which is usually the case on the road.
In this series, they always say, the series doesn't start until the home team loses. Well, the series hasn't started, but the Celtics have never lost in the TD Garden this entire playoffs.
And that means something.
They've only won one road game, but they have not lost there. So if you're looking at a Game 7, you're looking at a team that hasn't lost in that building.
Sure.
And you're also looking at a tired, fatigued LeBron James.
Because everyone on the Celtics team was born in 1999, 2000.
Yeah.
And
they were all born. I
energy.
already had a college diploma.
Yeah,
and they were
just like, "What do you mean? We're just coming out of the womb."
What are you talking about?
Well, listen. Do you think their age will come into play in Game 7? That they will be nervous? I don't think they will be. I feel like they're playing so confident and mature with so much poise.
I think it would be. I think the first quarter would be really important. You know what I mean? But let's. The fatigue thing I think is real with LeBron.
Oh, for sure.
Let's listen to LeBron talk about it.
I might have my moments, but I think everybody at this point is tired, or worn down, or whatever the case may be. But still trying to make plays to help our team win, put us in position to win. And we had moments, we had an opportunity, but we didn't make enough plays.
So look at sad LeBron. Look at he's all tired, hands on the hips. This is like dad LeBron. He's just the kids keeping him up all night. I can't even use my towel. I'm so tired. So here's the thing about this.
Okay.
I don't think it's all of the minutes that make him tired. I don't think it's the playing 82 games that makes him tired. I think it's this. It's the roster. He just has to do too much. James Harden, for example, last year, he got fatigued in that Spurs series. Now he's got Chris Paul to take
Is
a
that
little
why
bit
he
of
had
load
10
off.
points in Game 6?
Yes.
Okay.
Or he was concussed, or he was out the night before. There's a lot of different theories about that.
Or perhaps.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Yes,
who knows?
okay, go on.
But this LeBron fatigue thing, I think, is very, very real.
Okay, how long have you... From my point of view, my POV,
your perspective,
my perch.
Yes.
LeBron was only exhausted this past game. I've seen him tired, but to this level, this past game, perhaps the travel. But I do want to tell you that I think we're making a bigger deal out of this because look at your boy Draymond Green. He played one game for 45 minutes and he was smoked. So LeBron is clearly in better shape than just about everybody else in the league.
Yes.
I'm not worried about him being a little tired in this one game, this Game 5, because they went across country, he came back, they won 2 straight, he expended himself in crazy amounts. So I'm not necessarily worried about his fatigue. When I see somebody like Draymond Green play one game for 45 minutes.
That's true, but Draymond Green also has Hall of Famers all around him, so he doesn't have to exert the level of energy that LeBron does. Remember when LeBron said he spends $1.5 million a year on his training or his body?
He
or
can
whatever?
write that off as a tax write-off.
Yeah,
too.
and another thing I would say is how do you think $1 million of that is on hair transplants?
Yes, I mean, he's like,
And the rest of it's just like grocery bills.
I think think it's really a lot of grooming and maintenance. I agree with you.
Where did this number come from?
At 1.5. Well, he probably does. His trainers are probably gazillions of dollars. How many trainers does he think he has? I know
He's got
one.
Trainers. His trainers have trainers.
His trainers have trainers, right?
Yeah.
And then he probably flies them certain places on the PJ. He's probably including that as well. You know what I mean? And then he probably has someone just to come in and massage his body specifically. That's on a PJ. And the food he eats, his chef, I can see how that can add up. If I was his chef, I'd be like making $500,000 a year.
Probably. Yeah, and it's worth it. Yeah, he's got to go grocery shopping and things like that.
Everything of that nature.
Well, back to the game last night. One thing that this playoffs has sort of been missing a little bit of, which I always enjoy, is a little bit of the chippiness between the teams. We got a little bit of that in Game 5 when Marcus Morris kind of pushed over Larry Nance. We'll take a look at it. And Nance, he said something. The push wasn't that bad, right? He said something to him, and then Nance gave him the push, and then all the Celtics gather around. This was pointed out by our colleague and friend Jalen Rose this morning on Get Up. Do you think that the Cavs teammates should have done more to sort of come to Nance's defense in this?
Well, see, I saw some trying to get it. You can't leave. You know that you can't leave the bench.
Can't leave the bench. I'm familiar.
So that's that rule there. And I saw some try to get up and leave the bench, and they held some back. There were some people attempting to come to his defense, his aid. But at the end of the day, it's like, dude, I'm tired. As you pointed out, they're tired. They're gassed.
yeah, they're losing.
Yeah, they're like, I don't want to.
Feel good.
No, let me just. All right, let's come on. Let's get back.
I think the whole thing about this is like we all know that no punches are going to be thrown.
This is true.
This is not going to be a violent situation. It's not going to escalate. So why do I have to put? It's like you guys are having a fake fight, and now I have to try to care about being involved in your fake fight. It's just too much fake for me. Like, how about I just stand over here and let the referees handle it?
Well, there's too much to lose, so you really blame them.
No.
There's too much to lose. You can't really blame them.
Not at all.
Right?
Let's move on to the Western Conference.
Shall we?
We shall.
Okay, I'm with it.
The Warriors lost. I don't know if you know. They lost Game 4.
Shocking!
In the only close game in all of the conference finals of this year. We had a great game in Game 4. I really thought the Warriors were going to win. They lost at Oracle for the first time in 2 years. And now, this evening, they head into Houston to face the Rockets in a pivotal Game 5. Do you think Houston's going to win Game 5?
Absolutely.
This seems to be the narrative this morning.
I have more confidence in them winning Game 5 than I do in the Cavs winning a Game 7.
Really?
Yes, and let me tell you why. Because what happened, and listen, I may be putting a bit much on it, but what they did in that game, in Game 4, when they went into Oracle, that crazy arena, third quarter, that was an onslaught. I thought that was it, because people can't survive a Warriors
broke out
push.
The double shimmy, like he put the shimmy on top of the shimmy.
And when he it's like, oh, it's a wrap.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought too.
And mentally, I was like, it's over, because they score in bunches. They score in droves. The next thing you know, they're up by 3, then they're up by 30. So most teams, and particularly the Rockets, the way that they are built, their DNA says if you get up too much, if you get up, like, they collapse. They
lost by 41 points 2 days earlier.
If they lose any bit of hope, they collapse. I thought they lost hope. So when they came back in the fourth quarter and were picked, I think, and I'm going to, this is crazy.
Oh, you got a theory for us on Jalen Jacoby?
This is a theory. I usually talk smack about CP3, but his dog mentality, his pit bull mentality, that fighter in him, he actually has provided a different type of DNA strength for this Rockets team. And I never considered that before, because you talk so much smack about him because I hate the Clippers. But now I can't. But I see him, you know, that thing that people don't like about him. He bring them back in the fourth quarter. This has been
bubbling under the surface that, like, teammates don't like CP3. He's hard to get along with. Doc Rivers and CP3 had a little tension between them. And I thought, oh, he's going to go to the Rockets and the chemistry's not going to work. The sort of like the aloofness of James Harden and sort of Mike D'Antoni's not focusing on defense so much is not going to fit with CP3. But as you mentioned, it seems like he has provided sort of a backbone for the team and a leader that they can rally around. And you saw it the way that they persevered through that third quarter rush by shimmying Steph Curry and the Warriors.
I'm going to give him a lot of that credit because, look, history has proven, and I know that people are getting so mad at me for talking about James Harden, but I'm going to go 2015, 2016, 2017. Rockets in the playoffs are always sad. They were up, 3-1 in the first with 2015 against Gold State, lost. And that could be many reasons. Then we had him do 10 points in Game 6. last season when
it was
against the
a weird
Spurs.
performance.
It was a weird performance, especially when they were saying he was the MVP and not Russ. So his whole build to me has always been about what he can do in the playoffs. They talked so bad about it when he was in Oklahoma. He really didn't show up there. So I'm thinking, yeah, right. So I thank you for saying that, because I wasn't, I'm running my mouth. And so the point of the matter is, I feel like I think CP3 really is he's an X factor, and people have been saying that. I just didn't know how, and now I see why.
I'm excited to see it tonight. I have absolutely no idea who is going to win. I have no clue, and that's why I'm so excited.
You trying to tell me you think the Warriors?
It's harder if Klay Thompson doesn't play, the Warriors will lose, but we will see.
What about Iggy?
We'll see tonight. Another thing we'll see is after this. We have the "Don't Get Fired" topic of the day. Jalen, if you owned the Pistons, what's the first thing you'd do?
I'll go take like $10,000 out the bank, put it all on the floor, and do snow angels in it. Like, I made it.
LeBron James on the ropes, fighting for his playoff life as the Celtics go into Cleveland to take on the Cavs. That's all Friday night at 8:30. And every single day, including tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., you've got Jalen, Greeny, Beetle, and the whole crew. They will be joined by Kevin Hart tomorrow on Get Up! Get Up! We are joined by Carrie Champion.
Better than Kevin Hart.
Jalen Rose. Much better than Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
Much better than Kevin Hart.
Yes. Thank you.
Do you know what time it is?
Time to get ill.
Time for the "Don't Get Fired" topic of the day.
I love it.
And now, the "Don't Get Fired" topic of the day.
If you don't know what the "Don't Get Fired" topic of the day is, it is something where we talk about things and we try to toe the line and we try to be intelligent and articulate and responsible journalists that work for the Disney Corporation and represent ESPN well.
Okay.
It's difficult sometimes in
most
some
of
these
times.
topics.
Yeah.
Guess what we're going to talk about? The national anthem, because it seems like the last 2 years, it's all we talk about.
Right.
Well, the NFL has a new rule, Carrie.
Tell me about it.
The new rule is that if you are on the field during the anthem ceremony, you will be standing and respecting the ceremony. If you do not want to do that, that's fine.
You don't have to do it.
You can then stay in the locker room. All right? This is their proposed new rules. How do you think that will manifest itself as we see this occur every single Sunday in the NFL?
So my initial thought is that if you don't want to be a part of the anthem, you can stay in the locker room.
Yes.
Right? It's just that simple.
Yep.
But if you are on the field, you have to stand. You don't necessarily have to put your right hand over your heart, but you do have to stand out of respect for the flag. Correct?
Yes.
There's this gray area that I think that isn't really clear, because it doesn't say you can't make some other gesture. It doesn't say, it's very vague. It was like, too long as it's not disrespectful. Well, what you consider disrespectful and what I consider disrespectful are two different things.
I mean, one thinks about putting perhaps a balled fist in the air.
Yeah,
is that disrespectful? Is that standing? I'm standing. You said I have to stand. There is a lot of gray area, and I'm really curious to see how this will manifest itself. Let's say that 10 to 12 players on the team want to stay inside the locker room.
Sure.
Will that cause some tension between the players that are on the field and the players in the locker room?
You've heard that Raiders story.
Do you have to do everything as a group?
Sure.
Like, I'm not sure that this solves the problem. And one thing I want to bring to light is, like, let's take a look at how the other leagues have handled this, because I think you'll be surprised to learn that in the NBA, they basically have a rule that says players, coaches, and trainers will stand and line up in dignified posture. MLB, no rule. Hockey, no rule. NASCAR, no rule.
But you see why those
And there's more. Look, NCAA, no rule. U.S. Soccer Federation, all persons representing a federation national team shall stand respectfully during the playing of national anthems at any event in which the federation is represented. Here's one of my proposals. It's going to sound crazy. How about the NFL, like these other leagues, adopts a no-rule policy?
Why? Why? How does that help?
We don't have a rule.
But that affects their bottom line because the president of the United States has in some way shed light on this issue and made it more about disrespecting the flag.
Exactly.
So that affects their bottom line. So they can't have a no rule policy because they're not addressing the issue that some perceive is an issue.
Well, I think the bottom line is affected because the conversation surrounding the game of football becomes about disrespecting the flag and social injustice and not about football. And my thoughts are, the less rules, the less you try to put water on the fire that is the protest, the less you try to stop it and make rules and have meetings and do more of this, the more attention you're bringing it, the more we are going to discuss it here on ESPN.
Well, no, but now it's an issue. What I'm saying, it's out there. We can't walk it back anymore.
You can't put that toothpaste back in the tube.
Can't. So now they do have to address it. They didn't want to before, but now they do have to. I've always been like, okay, it's always, and this is the same case for this new rule. It's never really it's never the message. It's always the method. So for instance, with Colin Kaepernick, it wasn't his message. His message is admirable, but it was his method, and they couldn't hear what he was saying because he was kneeling. A choice in which he did not want to do. A veteran told him to do that. I always add that fact. However, that method stopped everybody from listening to what he had to say. This method, this rule that has been adopted by owners with no consideration to the NFLPA has now made people forget exactly what the message is. According to them, they want to make sure it's about patriotism and we want to make sure we respect our country. But at the same time, there is something very egalitarian about it. Something very about, this is all about us and we want to make sure you do what we say. And unfortunately, we can't protest at work. I know I can't. I can't come to ESPN and protest on Sports Nation, and you can't do that at Jalen Jacoby. Well, you could.
Yeah, you could, but the next day you wouldn't be on the show.
It's called the don't get fired.
The don't get fired topic of the day. Exactly.
Speaking of.
Exactly.
So there's a part of me that understands, yes, this is a business and that you can't come and protest on business hours. I understand that, but I do believe that this gray area will then float into something that makes it more of an issue. You pointed out something I thought that was really great. What about half the team staying inside the locker room and the other?
Then what happens with the conversations at practice and then the media coverage? Here's a question, which I don't really know the answer to, which is why I have intelligent people on the show like Carrie Champion.
You sure?
Do you think this rules and heading into next season will lead to more discussion and attention on the anthem ceremony, or do you think it will lead to less?
I think the first few weekends it definitely will be. I think that we are going to see something very interesting. Whether I'm under the impression, and you touched on it, there will be no cohesiveness in the locker room if people decide to stay in and others decide to stay on the field. I think behind the scenes there will be owners who are trickling the message down that everyone has to go out there and stand. But what about their posturing when they stand? That's just a whole, I feel like we're going to be talking about this for at least, 2-3 weeks until something happens, until a Sterling Brown may happen.
Something like that.
But the irony of the video being released once the NFL releases this new rule is not lost on me.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because it will bring it full circle as we end the segment, is when Colin Kaepernick initially started this, which seems like 17 years ago, it was about social injustice, and it was partially about the treatment of people of color by police.
Sure.
And now here we are, a day after the Sterling Brown video was released, and if you don't know, you probably should. It's a video of Sterling Brown who was double parked in a handicapped spot, and he was treated very unfairly. Even the police say that he was treated unfairly. But here we are with something like that coming out the same day this rule comes out.
Sure.
Yet we still end up talking about disrespecting the flag or disrespecting the military or service, or whether you're going to kneel or stand, you're going to have your hand on your heart or your hand in the air. And really, let's not forget, police officers shouldn't be putting their hands in places they shouldn't go either.
That is very fair. And it's always this thing where, I know when I watched that video, I felt like he was asking very simple questions as a citizen of the United States of America, a law-abiding citizen. He should have got a ticket, and that should have been it on him.
When we come back on Jalen Jacoby, Carrie Champion will still be with us.
Yeah.
The Cavs have a very, very interesting player that they might add to the roster for Game 6.
That's a good tease.
It's a good Welcome back to Jalen Jacoby, Carrie Champion in for Jalen Rose. Carrie,
tell me more.
With these phones, social media has become such a big part of our life.
Okay.
Sometimes, though, it gets socially awkward. An NBA meme account posted this, comparing Carmelo Anthony and Kyle Korver. Carmelo Anthony couldn't resist, went into the comments, said he had to comment on this one and then wrote FOH, which you can Google and find out exactly what that means. My question for you is, Carrie.
Yes.
Did Carmelo Anthony do the right thing for standing up for his legacy and himself and his reputation, put some respect on my name style, or should he resist the temptation to even acknowledge this or comment?
You know, I don't think he should have said anything, if I'm honest with you. Because, one, I asked producers if they added him, and they were like, no, it was a hashtag. So that tells me
that he's searching himself?
Yeah.
What ends up happening is someone will probably added him in the comments, so he saw it,
you think that's
and
what
then he clicked on it and then saw it. But here's the thing is, Carmelo Anthony, don't beef down.
Yeah,
okay?
Beef up.
Yeah, no one thinks that
no one really
Kyle
thinks
Korver is a better player than
beef
Carmelo
up.
Anthony. Like you don't like you can defend yourself, you can defend your legacy, but this one, anyone who follows the National Basketball Association will acknowledge that perhaps you are not the player you used to be.
Perhaps.
But I will take Carmelo Anthony over Kyle Korver.
Perhaps.
9 days of the week.
9 days of the week.
Moving on. Cleveland.com, Joe Varden. Saying that the Cavs might add a player to their roster.
Oh, really? Who? DeAndre?
His name is Remington. Oh. And he was a therapy dog for the University of North Carolina. And the Cavs really took to Remington. They're thinking about adding a therapy dog to help them through this difficult series. Soft move or boss move? Therapy dog for your basketball team.
Boss move.
Boss move.
A boss move. I have a dog. You already know. They changed. They changed the entire energy of everything.
I think the Cavs would have definitely swept the Celtics if they had a therapy dog. Easily.
Fact.
Why didn't they think of this earlier? Now that their elimination game is when they bring out the therapy dog.
Guess what? Remington will be at Game 6 and 7.
They'll probably win Game 6 twice and end the series there. Adam Thielen, you remember him? He's the wide receiver for the Vikings. Came out of nowhere. He was huge. He has a high school teammate that was running a marathon. I ran a marathon. Mike Kohler was running the marathon. It was supposed to be a half marathon. Took a wrong turn. Realized he was running a full marathon and just continued to run the full marathon. If you were supposed to run a half marathon and you accidentally took a wrong turn,
I'm not going to add an extra 12 and a half.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm not adding. I'm not just like, oh, you know what? Let's just run a full marathon.
Why not? No.
Shout to this guy.
I'm stopping, and I'm going to call Uber, and then I'm going to go ahead to
get back to it. Yeah. I'll probably just
the
go
finish
to
line.
lunch.
Yeah, I'm all set.
I want to thank you so much for joining me today on Jalen Jacoby. Come back anytime you want. You can see Carrie Champion on Sports Nation later this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
I'm coming back.
Anytime.
Okay.